Everyone in World of Tanks goes through a point at which they feel like everything goes completely right and they find the ultimate tank for them personally. And for me, in these last couple of months, it has been the Tortoise. It seems like every game I play in the Tortoise itself, I managed to have some really fantastic games. And if you joined me on the stream yesterday as of the recording of this video, you probably saw some really decent games played in the Tortoise where we managed to rack up, 6,000 damage, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 very easily. And this video is going to showcase some unseen gameplay, so you're not going to see the same repeat of the stream. But what we have in the Tortoise is something that a lot of tanks don't really have, and that is just the sheer brute force DPM that, yes, everyone talks about DPM in World of Tanks, and obviously that means your damage per minute, which means how many rounds can you get off all at once within the game to be able to have, the super high damage games in a short period of time. But what happens in World of Tanks is usually it's not very effective. However, I feel with the Tortoise, because the armor model, because the tank itself is really prone to kind of being able to let you do things that other tanks just won't let you do. And what I mean by that is that you can make super aggressive plays in the Tortoise, but you can also be passive. Now, yeah, it sounds a bit kind of silly to say, but what I mean is that often people will be very passive or too passive, but if you lend yourself towards being an aggressive player, you can play the Tortoise. If you lend yourself towards being a passive player, you can play the Tortoise. And that means that for the most part, I feel like most people can get the grasp of the Tortoise in some degree, but when you can master both being aggressive and kind of being a little bit more passive, it means that you can do things that other players just would not even dream of in this tank. And if you can get those right, and if you can manage to do things like that, then you will have some really good games. And you can see me doing here against the 279E, managing to spot him. And with the Tortoise, you can get spotting damage. And this is a tank destroyer. And yeah, you're probably going to get spotted if you are going out for that spotting role. But you can see within this game, we've already racked up 1,500 assistance. And this is just, I don't even know what to say. Like, it hypes me up so much playing the Tortoise. And I think it's just because everyone seems to think the Tortoise is, yes, it's a good solid tank that you don't want to sit in front of, but it's very boring to play. And actually, I think it's the opposite. I think that this tank is such a fun tank to play because you have the ability to pinpoint tracks. And talking about pinpointing tracks, we put a nice round into the aiming actually at that area of the track to be able to track the opponent, and then we can get some tracking assist damage. And you see me doing it again here against the E100. We track him out in the open, enables us to get both spotting and actual damage, and we track him again. And this is exactly the reason why I think the Tortoise is so powerful in the right hands, where you know how to kind of aim and you know where to track people, where you know how to pen and do damage. The one negative is of course artillery. Artillery is always a negative within the game if you're playing any tank, especially a slow moving one, and the Tortoise, albeit, is not actually as slow as it once was, and I think people miss the fact that you can now actually go a decent speed in the Tortoise, 25 kilometers an hour, without any speed boost equipment, which means that you can get into positions, and you can be this kind of really annoying tank for most people to play against, and you can have the super good accuracy, you can have the DPM, you can basically be a tank that most people hate to play against, to be frank with you. And I love playing in tanks that maybe people don't really they underestimate the tank that they're playing against, and therefore you can kind of showcase that maybe they should have thought a little bit more when they decide to YOLO you, or maybe they thought that they should come towards you, and then you end up kind of saying absolutely not, you should not have come towards me. And that is where I think it's it's like, it's just such a fun tank to play. And I think the key thing about the tortoise, and if you are interested in actually kind of learning a little bit more, the live stream which we did yesterday is something that I would really recommend, because it was actual live gameplay where I kind of run through how I would change my gameplay style dependent on the map. It was actually a really, really good stream if you're interested in finding out how to play these kind of more heavily armoured TDs that maybe have a little bit more alpha, or maybe have a little bit more DPM and stuff like that. So really do implore you to do it. But what you can see me doing here is just we used the dead wreck of the previous tank to be able to get forward a little bit more, which is something I always recommend if you've got a bit of armour, albeit the tortoise's cupola is a little bit of an annoying weak point where people will just aim at that anyway, but it does provide some cover from the flat, like, lower plate of the tortoise. But yeah, what we can do from this point is just be super aggressive towards them, and this is where, like, no other tank, if we're playing in like a sniping tank or something that just doesn't really have that much armour, we could lose like the rest, like 1600 hit points very, very quickly. But because the main weak point being those cupolas, and the fact that people have to actually hit them from the sort of distances that we're engaging from, it means that 90% of people, or, well, I say that, maybe 40% of the rounds won't even hit. So that's something that I think most people don't realise, and that's where I think the tortoise comes in super clutch. And also the fact that, yeah, we're able to rack up 3000 assistance damage, albeit it is on Prokhorovka, so it's a bit more of a special case, but nonetheless we're still able to be the ones that can spot for our team, and that's what I really ultimately love. Artillery gets taken out, which is nice. And this is where the tortoise just mops up the rest of the damage, because you can go in, no one's really going to be able to pen you, and they're certainly not going to be able to reliably pen 1600 hit points worth of damage in the short period of their lifespans now, because they're all on a one shot or whatever it might be, and we can just run forward, we can just reload in such a short period of time, and we can just pump out damage into the Leopard 1. Obviously the tortoise's DPM, I believe, is round about like 4,500 off the top of my head from the calcs that we just did, since we reload in 5.3 seconds. Alpha damage 400, that's over 10 shots a minute, which means that you've at least got 4,000 DPM, and you're probably looking more in the region of 4,800. So yeah, it's a really, really super powerful tank, and you can see that in this replay where even on Prokhorovka, probably not the nicest of maps to play the tortoise since it's slow and you don't actually have that much flexibility in a map which is predominantly for mediums, we still managed to pull out a result where we pick up 8.5 or 8.6 thousand combined damage, which is obviously a mastery badge, nearly 2,000 base XP, which knows that you've probably had a good game. It's a good indicator, and of course in such a short period of time, 6 minutes and 51 seconds. Now the next replay is on Muravanka, and this is a map that I feel like the tortoise probably shouldn't do as well as it usually does, and that's because, yet again, like Prokhorovka, it's a map that requires flexibility, but the tortoise, to all intents and purposes, is a non-turreted TD that is pretty slow, and so you shouldn't actually get that much flexibility. But I think because the tortoise has the armour profile that is really, really hard for people to snipe your cupola, especially if you're on hills and stuff like that, and it doesn't get absolutely terrible gun depression, it means that you can do things that other tanks just would not be able to do. And so if you know those kind of aspects of the tank, and you're able to get into positions where maybe you wouldn't be able to do as another player in a different tank, then yeah, you can have results that just surprise you, and that is definitely something that you see on Malinovka or Muravanka even. And the tortoise in general, like, you can play this tank so much differently, and that's where I think that my love for the tortoise has kind of come about, is because it has something else, it has something different that most people don't really expect from this kind of tank. And you can see here, I wouldn't ever really recommend doing what I'm doing here, but I want to be super aggressive, I just want to go, and that's exactly what we're doing, and we're able to spot a few opponents, get a little bit of assistance damage, so it's not that much of a problem. Obviously when we make that push, we need to be very careful of artillery, as you just saw, and the kind of tank destroyers that are going to be camped in H1 and H2, and often they'll shoot you from the side, so you have to be a little bit careful of that. But regardless, we're down here now, we are able to get into this position pretty safely, and there are 2 artillery pieces on the enemy team, which everyone hates him, we all know it. And yeah, now from this position you have to be a little bit careful over to the left as well, because apparently none of our team decided that they're going to go over there, which is a bit disappointing. But nonetheless, we can kind of go towards the gorilla. We want to take him out the game because we don't want to lose 850 hit points very, very easily to said gorilla, or 750 hit points even, and hopefully we can get a nice shot into the gorilla there, which we do, and we pick him up, and now we have an Object 260, which if you watch the World of Tanks PC video you know can be a bit devastating, albeit on console it's a little bit different, but yeah, still a tank that you don't want to disregard, and yeah, we certainly don't want to do that in this game. You can see here just trying to go for the lower plate, which is ideal, and we're able to pick up one shot. Now, you know about artillery, everyone knows that artillery is a pretty annoying tank to come up against, and within this game we're pretty much looking like we're going to win. The enemies are kind of coming into a position where it's going to be very difficult for them to do much. We lovely round into the artillery piece there, and this is where the tortoise just becomes a monster, because you can just push, like, no matter what the tank you're coming up against, unless it's another tortoise or you're coming up against another high alpha damage tank that's going to take you out in one shot, you pretty much know that you're going to be able to do more damage to them than they'll ever be able to do to you in the same period of time, and therefore if you know that you can pen them every single time, you're going to be easily able to go through them. You're going to be easily able to take them out, especially if you're on more hit points than them, unless you make like a serious misplay. But as with this game, 3,847 damage done, 1,200 assistance, that's 5k combined in a match where it is of course a tier 10 game on a map that isn't particularly great, and that's really what I want to showcase to you guys, is that the tortoise, if you haven't already gone down this line, seriously gets underestimated by probably 90% of people, because if you know how to aim and you know how to retrack opponents and you know how to think forwardly so that you're not just, you know, YOLOing in and just hoping it goes alright, and you're actually planning what you're going to be doing next, then this tank is perfect. And that's why you see the tortoise come top very, very easily in a kind of skilled player's hands, is because they know how to do all of that and they can make it work. And I'm not saying that it's going to work for everyone. I'm not saying that the tortoise is overpowered, because to be honest with you, it's probably not overpowered. It's just very lends itself towards people that know how to spot, know how to push out damage, and know when to move forward and move back, and all of those different things that World of Tanks has within it. So yeah, I think that that's a key crucial aspect of the tortoise and why I love playing it. And once again, I would recommend you actually checking and taking a look at the stream which we did yesterday, which was fantastic, and really showcases even more about the thought process of playing at the time and how you can have these results that most people probably would love to have, where you're consistently dealing like 5k damage, where you're consistently holding off like 5 opponents all at once with just you and maybe one other teammate, where if you are the defensive wall, the brick line, then you can make it work so nicely. And that's why I think the tortoise in general will be a tank that you will enjoy, especially if you know how to kind of make them work. And albeit in this game we only pick up 5k combined, I wanted to showcase what an average kind of looking game looks like in said tank, and how you can still make it work on a map that maybe doesn't work 90% of the time in these type of classes. Coming top, of course, managing to pick up 5k combined, and a really great result. And of course we are going towards the Badger, which I have now, as of yesterday's stream, picked up on the game, so we will be able to review the Badger, and we'll be producing a video very, very soon playing in that tank. So thank you very much for watching today's video. Don't forget, the stream will be on the left hand side here, where you can look through that and see loads of different tanks, as well as the new Skoda T56. And talking about the Skoda T56, take a look at the right hand video where you can see the new premium tank in World of Tanks, the Czech Tier 8 Heavy. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you all for the support, and I really do appreciate it. See you in the next one. Goodbye.